Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Anywhere Uni live podcast. So, as usual, if you are following us live, you can ask all your questions and put your comments in the comments section, and I'll make sure to go through all these questions as we talk and exchange with our guest. If you are listening to us on Spotify, on Deezer, or on YouTube, please subscribe, and that way you can make sure to receive all the new episodes. We have a new guest every week. It can be a university representative, or it can be one of our students that's in an international university somewhere. So tonight it is my pleasure to welcome Eric. Eric is working at Bishop's University in Quebec as a senior recruitment officer. Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I see the beautiful Bishop's campus right behind you, and I studied at a university kind of next door, the French-speaking one, Université de Sherbrooke, for my PhD. So I know the city, and I have to say that I've been there mostly in the summer, but I love the location.
Oh, yes, me too. The city of Sherbrooke has so much to offer. I think both between the outdoorsy side of Sherbrooke, but also the city aspects as well. There's such a nice balance in our area. The eastern townships, I think sometimes we get overlooked because there's so much that Quebec and Canada has to offer. But when people find us, they really find this nice balance between that outdoorsy, naturey side and then the city as well.
Yeah. When I posted on LinkedIn about our conversation, I had some comments saying, "Oh, we're so happy you're inviting bishops. That's such a gem." So, it's a gem to be discovered a bit further, and I think that's what we're going to do tonight by diving into your institution.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that term gem encapsulates us very well because of these different pieces that all come together to make us such a great place to study and to live.
All right. So, if you just to get started, can you just tell us exactly what you do and for how long you've been with Bishop's University?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great place to start. So, I have been with Bishops professionally now, working in the admissions office and the recruitment office for about 5 years. And I'm currently, as you mentioned, a senior recruitment and admissions officer. And I've traveled all over the globe meeting future Gators and getting to hear all different stories and perspectives and backgrounds. And that's really the cool part of Bishops, is that we get these students from all over to form our special community. I actually did study at Bishop's myself as a student. I came back in 2016 and graduated in 2021 with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and a double concentration in Criminology, Law and Social Policy, and Gender and Diversity Equity Studies. So I have these two sides to my own Bishop story, of both the professional side and the working side, but also it is so close to my heart given that I studied here myself, and can actually relate to a lot of our international students who come, because I myself originally grew up in the US, just outside of Boston. So
All right, that's very exciting. We love it when we have a university rep that has been a student there, because we can really have both perspectives in one conversation. There's a few things already that you mentioned that I want to kind of ask you about. You mentioned the term Gators, so that the Gators are the students of Bishop. That's your mascot.
yes, that is our mascot. We are very proud Gators. I always challenge people out there to find a Gator in the wild who hasn't doesn't have this insane passion for both our university and our area. And so, yes, that's our university mascot. All of our sports teams, all of our varsity teams represent the Gators, and they all have kind of a cool story of how they ended up on our campus.
Yeah, is that a long story to share, or?
No, I would say the background to how we got the term Gator is when we were founded back in 1843. So before Canada was even formerly a country, the
Oh, yeah.
bishops that founded us would wear these types of shoe coverings called gaiters. And so we thought that was a funny nod by having the Gators be our mascot.
Yeah, amazing. So it's really quite an old institution compared to Canada's lifetime, and the fact that you have, that mascot and all these sports team, I think, tells us something about kind of Bishops has a special place within the even Canadian university landscape. It's kind of almost a US, you get experience as well. Like you get kind of the best of both worlds between Canada and the US. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that says it perfectly, quite honestly. Yeah, we have a bit of this American feel almost to our campus because of the size, because we're kind of abnormal in that Canadian landscape, that we are more of this community oriented institution. So it makes it a unique place to study. And then, like you said, bringing in the athletics as well. It's not uncommon that you'll go to one of our games and see a sea of purple in the audience and maybe a cookout or a tailgate before the game. So there is a bit of this US American energy on our campus, but then we still have a lot of the elements of the Canadian system in terms of the public aspect and the quality of the education. So I really
Yeah.
do. Sometimes I brand us, being from New England myself, I say we're like one of those New England small, close knit institutions that you may have heard of. But again, at a Canadian price tag. So kind of the best of both worlds there.
Yeah. So how many students do you have?
Yeah, so we're about 3,000 students total. I personally loved that size because it's big enough where you still get the full university experience that you may be looking for in terms of the access and the facilities and things like that. But our average class size is 36 for first and second year courses. So you get that benefit of knowing your professors and they often know you by name. So you're really able to take your learning to the next level.
Yeah, and it's not something that's very common in Canadian universities, and that's something I always tell my students is like, you have to be ready to jump into a massive university like in Montreal, for example, with like tens of thousands of students. As some students love it, but you have to be maybe a bit more independent. You have to be a bit more proactive to get to know people, to meet people. And in a community like Bishops, you kind of don't have a choice. Everyone lives on campus. It's a smaller community. I've never heard one of my students that went to Bishop tell me, "Oh, I'm homesick and I didn't make any friends, and now it's the winter." And when I've heard that in other institutions in Canada, where kids felt a bit more isolated, I guess.
Yeah, truly, that is a way that we differentiate ourselves. And I can relate to everything you're saying because the students that I've connected with and over the years, when they come to campus, they really see everything that I'm talking about, that it is such a community and so easy to meet friends and to get to know your professors. And you're always taught by a professor in our classroom, never a TA. You're always getting that FaceTime with them. And I think it just makes your experience that much more full. And then over 85% of our students come from at least an hour away. So I even say to international students, like even our Canadians feel a bit international on our campus in a way. And so it's truly all these students coming together. And like you said, so easy to make friends and to make those connections. And it's really a unique university in the landscape, given that we are English. So that also bonds a lot of our students, I think, when they come to campus, because we're in this really cool bilingual city, but you kind of get the best of both worlds in that respect as well.
And so what's the percentage of international students, and where are they kind of coming from?
Yeah, so we have about 23% international students coming from close to 80 different countries. So we are really proud that even though we are a smaller institution, you're not sacrificing that global perspective on our campus. You're still getting that, we like to say the world meets on our campus. So truly, we do get students from all over, even though we are on the outskirts of our city and we are smaller. You'll still get that international perspective. I'd say some of the more popular countries we get students from of that 80 countries is definitely France, definitely a lot of European countries, Belgium, a sizable US population, given that we're only 30 minutes from the border from our southern neighbors with Vermont.
Yeah.
So there is a nice mix, but definitely still a very vibrant international scene.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense with the tuition fee, that agreement between Quebec and Belgium and France that makes Quebec quite affordable, and being able to study in English in such a nice campus, being close to the US and close to Montreal, it's kind of a cool opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
no, I couldn't have said it better. It truly is like such a nice balance between like almost getting, again, what we said earlier, that US campus experience, but the Canadian quality, the affordability, only about an
mhm.
hour from Montreal. So easy access to an international airport. You're still in the city with Sherbrooke being about 200,000 people. So it is really a nice mix of things. And then that affordability, I mean, that can't be overlooked. The fact that yeah, if you are a French citizen or a Franco-Belgian citizen, that tuition agreement does really benefit our students and that they're able to pay on par with the Canadian rate.
Which is like approximately 10,000 Canadian dollars.
Exactly, about 10,
Yeah.
11,000 Canadian.
Yeah. 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 All right. And so everyone is housed on campus and everyone lives on campus for the whole 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah, so we guarantee housing for our first year. Most of our students will start their journey on campus and or live on campus at some point. It is typical that our students will move off campus in their second or their third year. The reason for that being is our city of Sherbrooke, which I'm sure you know from your time there, is
Yeah.
quite affordable, even still in today's economy. We rank as one of the most affordable cities in Canada to live in. When I moved off
Nice.
campus, I only paid about $400 a month for my apartment, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I challenge any of my Boston friends to find that in Boston. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so a lot of our students will move off campus. However, the unique thing that I will highlight is that kind of like what you're saying, they still stay very close to campus. So about 98% of our students live within a walking distance of campus. So it is
Nice. Yeah.
really still that community. And even when they move off, it's almost like they're still on campus.
Yeah. No, really nice. Um, and so in your first answer, you mentioned what you studied and you mentioned lots of different subjects. And I know it's in Europe we students tend to focus on one area of study right away and study for 3 years. Okay, so can you? And I know in Quebec as well. Sometimes especially when you study in the French speaking side of French speaking universities, you can have to choose a very specific major. How does it work at Bishops? Okay, do you have to choose something when you apply? Do you have flexibility? Can you combine subjects? Do you have to be affiliated with a specific faculty? Like, can you explain to us how it works in terms of choosing academics there?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite topics to touch on, especially when chatting with some of my French students or European students, because, like you said, it is kind of this interesting model and sometimes I think tough for some of our students to wrap their head around because of the systems that they may be used to. But that is the beauty of Bishops is we kind of offer you this path, this ability to structure your education the way that you want to. So we kind of blend the US systems and the European like systems together to offer students a lot of flexibility. So they will apply into a program like they're used to. Our students will typically apply into one specific area. For example, for myself, I actually did not start as that big long title. I applied into sociology, just sociology. And then the beauty of Bishops is that you do have this breadth and this depth. That's the term that we like to use, where you have the opportunity to take a wide breadth of subjects if you want to. For example, you heard in my degree, I took some criminology courses. I took some gender study courses. I started to add to my degree and take some other areas that complemented or supplemented my degree. However, we have some students who come to Bishops who fully just want to focus on one subject. That's their area, that's their passion. For example, we get a lot of our science students who are very passionate about just the sciences. They're here for, say, bio or, physics, whatever it may be, and they really focus on that. But the beauty of Bishops is that you have this flexibility. So students like myself who came in with an idea of what they wanted to do can add to their degree while they're on campus. So we get a lot of our students who, about 70% actually, who will change their degree in some way, shape, or form, whether that's adding on a minor, adding on what we call a double major. So what you referenced earlier of doing multiple subjects to programs. So students do have this flexibility to change their program once they're on campus. That 70%, it doesn't mean, all students change their program, but it could mean that they just added something in some way. But yeah, you have a lot of flexibility at Bishops, and I think that empowers our students to find what they're passionate about. The amount of times I've heard students who come to our campus thinking that they want one thing, but when they start taking courses, realizing, you know what, I'm actually better suited for this other area. Or we get a fair amount of students who, like myself, have many different interests, and that way they don't have to sacrifice any of them. They're able to take a history course, take an English course, but still focus on whatever program it is that they came to study.
Yeah, and I had a student that wanted to do biology, and but didn't have quite the requirements in terms of her high school subject selection, and she was able to go for a Bachelor of Arts in biology at Bishops, and then get credits to then fully get back into kind of the sciences. So which I thought was very very cool, because there's not many. We didn't really find other options in Canada that could have that flexibility to get her into the sciences through that Bachelor of Arts option.
Yeah, honestly, that is a great example right there. I think that is one of the huge benefits to Bishops, is that students can come and regardless of their background, can kind of find their way into what it is that they're looking for because of that flexibility, because of that breadth and depth that they have on our campus. I've also heard of students, I'm thinking of one right now, who, they came for business because their parents were very focused on them doing business.
That happens.
It happens, yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
we love our parents. We love their guidance. But they also, on the side of that, were very passionate about music. They loved music. And our dean of business used to say to me all the time, she used to say, musicians in a way are bound to be entrepreneurs for the rest of their lives, because in some way you are selling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the beauty. They were able to still do their business and, appease maybe some of those other voices, but they were still able to dabble in some music as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very cool when you can do that, because you're right. Sometimes you have that voice of kind of reason telling you, oh, it's safer to go towards these kind of degrees, and you still have, interest there, but then you have another passion that's a bit more scary maybe, and the fact that you can do both is amazing. And so how would that work for a French back or an IB, a full IB student? Because in North America and in English speaking provinces of Canada, an undergraduate degree is 4 years long, right? So could you walk us through exactly how it works in Quebec for these students that come with either French back or IBDP, which are most of our students? And what does it mean for the way they go through their undergraduate degree? Because 4 years gives you maybe more time to explore. In 3 years, you have to be a bit more focused kind of quickly. Is it automatic, these kind of credits that you get, and how does it work?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up this topic as well, because I can hear my advisors, my academic advisors in the back of my ear telling me to promote this as much as possible, which is the fact that when IB or IBDP or French back students come into Bishops, they typically have enough advanced credit where we shave off a year, because our typical degrees are 4 years, as you were saying, like the typical model here in Canada and the States as well. And so they come in with enough advanced credit with given specific scores that they shave off a year and their degrees become 3 years. And so it does shorten their time for exploration, because a lot of those extra credits that would give them that room for flexibility and exploration, it tightens it a bit. There's still definitely room outside of their major. We purposefully build that in. Something we're doing at Bishops right now actually is even increasing that opportunity, giving more credits for students to be flexible. So that will hopefully ease some of those requirements on our French back and IBDP students, giving them a bit more room. But what I recommend for them is when they come to Bishops, one of the first things you should do is set up a meeting with your advisor. That way you can hear exactly, okay, I have 3 years. It's a little bit shorter than some of my peers. So how do I make the most of my time on campus to ensure that I'm still doing my required courses that I need for my major, but I'm also getting the most out of my time here? I will
Mhm.
say it's not uncommon that some of our IBDP students and or French back students may choose to stick around a little bit longer, say for an extra semester, because they want to maybe do a few more courses, add on a minor, something of that nature. However, it is possible to add some of those things and still graduate within the 3 years. They just need to be a bit more proactive and savvy in how they
Mhm.
build their schedule.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's always a bit of a shock to their system when they get there and they're like, oh, I need to log in at that time and I need to pre-plan the courses I'm going to take, and I could take that course here and there, and I need to organize myself. And they are, as you said, there is thankfully you have academic advisors guiding the student, but it's definitely a different way of going through your bachelor than when you in Europe, and it's like, here's your schedule. And maybe you have one little option, but everyone follows the same schedule. It's amazing on the freedom, but it also requires students to be as you say, proactive and to think things through as they progress throughout their bachelor degree. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think just I can totally understand how coming from the European or the French system, it's a little bit of a shock, but I promise them, I always say to our students from Europe or from abroad, in other areas where the curriculum might be different, we will support you. That's the beauty of Bishops, is we are known for our support.
mhm.
That's one thing we hear time and time again from our students, is that they felt well supported throughout the process. So as long as they take advantage of that support and don't ignore it. Like, the advisors are there. They're there to help you and to answer those questions, because they want to make sure you're getting the most out of your time on our campus, whether that's adding a minor, adding, another program, or just being able to explore. So they're there to support you through those questions.
All right, perfect. So a little question that maybe not everyone will be interested in, but I think it's good to hear. It's on sports, because I have sometimes students asking me, "Oh, is it the same in the US? In Canada, if we want to be in varsity competitive teams, is there like leagues that compete between universities in Canada? How do you get selected? Is it just a walk-in as you get into campus, or should you contact coaches before? Are there any scholarships tied to it? Could you give us a very quick perspective on these kind of student athletes or really competitive in their sport? How does it work, and how should they go about it?
Absolutely. Very well versed on this topic, actually, because although I'm the least athletic person you'll ever meet, I have a wide range of knowledge coming from the US and seeing how the system there, the NCAA, works compared to our system here in Canada. So, our national league is called U Sports, or University Sports. That's what most of our varsity teams will be a part of. The league that they're a part of are equivalent to the NCAA. And it is still a very competitive level of play for any of our varsity sports. At most Canadian universities, you'll find some level of varsity sport on their campuses. And so for us at Bishops, we have a clear distinction of a list of varsity between, compared to that of, say, club or intramural, where it's a bit more of a, sign up or come to campus and you're able to play once you're on campus. For our varsity teams, it's typically more of a recruitment process. The coaches will recruit for their teams. Some of them may open up opportunities. Now, I'm speaking specifically for Bishops. I can't say for all Canadian universities, but some of them may offer opportunities even at the varsity level for students to start once they're on campus. That depends on the team and how competitive it is to get a spot. But typically, it is a recruitment process. And on our athletics website, gators.ca, you'll find a prospect form, or we call it a rookie form, a prospective athlete form, where they can fill it out and list the varsity sport that they're interested in playing, list the position, maybe list some of their stats and things, and if they have any game footage, and that will put them in correct or direct contact with our coaches, so that they can begin that process of recruiting them and knowing, okay, there's a student at XYZ school that is interested in playing for this team. So that is the first step, is filling out that form. Our athletics landscape in Canada as a whole is, like I said, still very competitive. I will say there is a bit of a difference compared to that of the US, in the sense that you are first and foremost a student when you're in
Mhm.
Canada. We I get that a lot where student athletes realize that, yes, it's still very competitive, but you still have to meet the admissions requirements. You still have to maintain a certain average in your courses. It's a bit more strict on the academics, and you're an athlete second. But
Yeah.
again, still a very competitive level of play at Bishop. Some of our most popular sports definitely are rugby. American football is very popular. We basketball as well. So we have some really competitive level of play. Our women's hockey team, ice hockey team, actually won the national championships last year, which we're very proud
Oh,
of.
wow.
So, yes, yeah, definitely a great sports scene on our campus. As far as scholarship goes, there is athletic scholarship tied to most of our varsity sports. And the coaches will give that out directly themselves. So they're in charge of allocating those funds. It is
Mhm.
possible that students could receive both an athletic scholarship and an academic or merit-based scholarship award and bursary. So it is possible to get both. I will say it's typically not as large of amounts as what you would see, say, in the US.
Yeah.
That's for Canada as a whole. For example, we don't typically do what you would hear as full ride scholarships, where it covers everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just something for students to be cognizant of.
Mhm. All right. So before we dive into the how do we apply and how do the admission process, can we go a little bit further on what you offer in terms of academic at the undergraduate level? Because in Europe you can do law right away. I see a question in the chat on do you offer law? I know in North America it's a bit different. Do you have everything like engineering and or are you specialized in some specific areas?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad I can kind of expand on this before to lay more of a foundation of Bishops. So at Bishops, we are known for our undergraduate courses. We are what's known as a primarily undergrad university. So truly what I love about that is any of our undergrad degrees that we do offer, that's our bread and butter. That's really what we're known for. We prepare our students very well to go on to further studies at the graduate level. And to answer directly to your piece about law and as well as medical studies and things of that nature, those would all be second degree entry programs in Canada as a whole. So even our Bishop students have a strong track record of going on to further studies in medicine or in law or in other fields as well. But you do need that undergrad degree first before going on. Quebec is a little unique in some aspects when it comes
Yeah.
to, say, law, and there are some niche offerings
Mhm.
and things, but for the most part, it is a second degree entry for a lot of those fields. At Bishops, we offer over 100 different programs. So we may be small, but we offer a very wide range and lots of opportunity for our students to explore. I'd say our most popular programs would be our Williams School of Business. So anything in the business world, we're pretty well known for. We also have a strong psychology program. So psychology and neuroscience, those are two areas that we're definitely known for. And then outside of those two, it kind of is a sprinkling of a bunch of other programs, but a few would be our sports studies, for example, is very popular given that whole athletic piece that we just talked about. We have a great sustainable agriculture and food systems program, given that we have such a beautiful nature around us. And then, as well as our physics and astronomy, I've seen a lot of growth in the past few years. So our astrophysics as well. But yeah, even outside of those programs I've just named, over 100 to choose from, lots of opportunity. We don't offer engineering. That is one thing that I get asked about a lot that we
Mhm.
unfortunately don't offer. But that's really because, again, the nature of the Bishop's model, being able to combine programs and
Yeah.
multiple
Just to mix and
offerings.
match. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And to do that, it kind of engineering would require a more specific pathway where you're a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
more structured.
Yeah. All right. And I think it's also a good message that I like to send to my families is when they think about grad school and, masters, they have to be strategic and think about where they want to study at the undergraduate level, because as you said, you're primarily an undergrad kind of university, smaller classrooms. You get to know your teachers. Sometimes in a massive university, it's harder to for your GPA, your class average, and all these kind of things. You want to stand out, and sometimes having that kind of more nurturing context to prepare you to be in a strong position to go for these graduate school is actually a better strategy than to go into the biggest university in a big city where it's going to be maybe a bit more difficult to stand out.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I'm so happy that that's something that you've brought up, because that's something I reference to families as well, time and time again, because again, that's what we're known for. The undergrad university, you'll come here and get such a strong education at the undergrad level. Our students leave with research assistantships, TA positions. They were the campus editor for the school, the university newspaper. They were involved in sports teams and did our arts club, our beekeeping club, all these different things that when they go to apply to those grad schools, they have a wealth of experience that they were able to take advantage of. They weren't competing against thousands of students for a few positions. And they work directly with our professors, because our professors have that time and that access. Whereas at a large institution, as you said, it's difficult for some of those professors, and oftentimes you might be taught by a TA, but at Bishop's, like, you're getting that direct access to them. And I always tell families too, I mean, who's writing you those reference letters for those master's programs, for those grad programs, are those professors. And I, as someone who's seen a lot of reference letters come in, you can always tell the difference between, say, a ChatGPT letter that, oh, student XYZ was amazing, they were great. And then
great, and
then a professor who actually, they know their student. They're like, oh my gosh, the standout, we worked on this research assignment. They helped me with this project, this grant. So these are things that have real world application. I'm thinking of one student now who, a recent grad of ours from our astrophysics, who did an internship with NASA while he was with us, and then now is studying at Dartmouth in the US. So to take a bishop's degree and to go to an Ivy League. And that's something that we prepare our students well to do. We have a strong track record of students going on to McGill, for example, or Concordia for their grad programs as well. So lots of opportunity.
And as you said at the beginning, I think Canadian universities are strong kind of overall, and the standard of education is high. And sometimes our families are a bit worried because they haven't heard about bishops, and they're like, they're just thinking, if you go back to Europe and people are not going to know about bishops. But in terms of a longer game strategy, getting that amazing experience, as you said, with this access to your actual professors, you can also see it. I personally believe that by itself, it's sufficient. But for these families, I think, to understand that it's actually very well recognized, and it's not because of the size or whatever it is, that you're not going to be able to access top master's program in your field, and if anything, it might actually help you to stand out when you apply to these.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're saying that, because it's something I think hearing from an on-campus representative is one thing, but hearing it from others who are out in this industry and in this world, I think it reinforces the messaging that, we offer such a strong education here at Bishop's. And while not everyone may have heard of us upon first name recognition or first glance, although I will say I've had a lot of people run up to me in airports and things like that when they see the Bishop's bag, which is always a fun story. But even outside of that, yes, the name brand might not be what they've heard of in their home country or their home place, but it goes so much further. The education that will offer you because of those opportunities, because of the access, because of the research potential, the internships. And we still work with some major organizations. We work with companies like Pepsi, with CIBC, with Desjardins, major banks in Canada. We like to say in some ways we are this David versus Goliath, but we are a major player in the organization and in the industry. So students can take what they have at Bishop's and take it off into the world and do so much more, even on its own, but like you said, also to other institutions as well.
Oh, great. All right. So let's dive into application now. How do you apply? How do you select your students at Bishop? Because I know in can vary from university to university. So can you walk us through the process?
Absolutely. And I'm not just saying this, I know I'm biased because I work here and I went here, but I love our application process because of both the communication between us and the student who applies, but also because of the process itself is very streamlined and smooth. So to start off, we are what's known as a rolling admission institution. So for those that aren't familiar, although I'm sure you are, it is from the moment you apply, you could hear from us, could have an answer, a decision from us within 10 to 15 business days of applying. So as soon as we receive applications, we are assessing them on the spot. We sometimes that answer that you'll hear from us isn't always a firm decision on the application, but rather an update saying, hey, we're still missing this document or this piece before we can release a decision. But as soon as we have everything in that we need, we're able to release that decision to a student, and we'll get it out there as soon as possible. Our one exception is our education program. So any of our education programs, we do those on a segmented basis, but everything else would be rolling. We look for predicted scores. So when it comes to the French Bac or the IBDP, we are looking for those predicted scores. And we can make conditional offers like other Canadian institutions based on those predicted scores alone. It's very rare that we would rescind an offer of admission if the actual score differs from the predicted, so long as it's not a massive difference or a massive
Drop,
variation. And we also so with that rolling piece, our applications open in August for the following September. So for example, for September 2026, our applications opened this past August, and they're open all the way till March 1st. So students have a very wide window to apply. And that's what I do love about Bishops, is that we're giving you a lot of opportunity. We know you have a lot of other applications out there, and we know this process is stressful. So we're hoping to not be one of those institutions that is banging down your door, but rather giving you the time to do the application when it's most convenient to you. I will say the sooner you apply, like any other institution, the better, because that shows us that you have a strong interest in us. What's cool about Bishops as well, so this is unique because for the Canadian landscape, often it is very grades-based, very academically focused. And that is true for Bishops as well. We are very much focused on those predicted scores, on those academics. However, Bishops will allow students to submit any other documents that they want to, whether that's a CV, extracurricular experience, an essay, a recommendation letter. We will look at anything else the student wants us to have. So while it's not required, you do not need to submit anything other than the predicted scores. It gives students an extra opportunity if their academics don't solely speak for themselves and they want to kind of enhance their application with something a little bit more, then they have that opportunity with us.
And so because in IB schools they usually have predicted grades kind of automatically. In French bac schools, some do and some don't, and their school don't even know what predicted grades are. Can they just send their transcript, like their première, grade 11, grade 12 transcript? Would that be sufficient, or would they have to ask their school to generate these predicted grades?
Yeah, so typically we will be looking for those predicted. So we will encourage them to go to their schools and kind of explain that this is the admissions process. And while it may be a bit foreign to them, to do their best in terms of what those predicted would look like. But we will work individually with each school and each student. So I think that's something that shines about Bishop's application admission system as well, is because we don't receive the same volume of applications as a large institution, we're able to work much more on a one-to-one basis with the student applying. And quite frankly, we are blessed in the sense that we have a decent sized team for our volume. So we are able to handle that very well. So in those cases that you're describing, I always encourage reach out to us directly if you are getting pushback on those predicted scores and your school or your teachers are not understanding. We can work with you and we'll find a solution that benefits both of us. Bishops, we work with the schools of all different types of curriculum. I've even had gradeless schools where students apply who don't even receive any grades.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and we work with that school and we work with that student. So we're willing to take that extra step. Again, because of that personalized nature of Bishops, that extends to the application process too.
Mm-hmm. No, amazing. And what kind of like so some Canadian unis will provide specific, if I take the French back or IB, specific higher level subjects or specific spécialité like French back specialty subjects, will provide even some grades of what's kind of expected. Is that something that students can find on the Bishop's website, or to gauge whether they're eligible and yeah, for whatever program?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a detailed admissions page for both the French back and the IBDP. We also even have a formalized admissions process for the IBCP. So even for the career program as well,
Nice.
you can find specified admissions requirements. To give you an overarching glimpse into what you'll find on those pages. So for the French back system, the minimum, not the average score that we receive, but the minimum score that we would look for across all programs would be a 12.5. And for the IBDP, the minimum without your bonus points, without the EE or TOK bonus points, would be a 30 across all programs. And then as far as specific programs, for example, our business school or any of our Bachelor of Science programs, you will find some more specific courses and things. Those are all laid out very clearly on our website, and we tell you exactly what we're looking for. And again, we are willing to work with students on a one-to-one basis if they're not sure if they're meeting those requirements.
And so, in terms of choosing subjects, like especially with math, is that something that students have to be careful about for a lot of programs?
Yeah, I would say the one that trips students up the most is math. And so being aware that for most, if not all of our, or sorry, for all of our BSc programs, we are like, so our Bachelor of Science, we are looking for some level of math. And that's kind of brings up that student that you brought up earlier who may not have had all the requirements for a Bachelor of Science, so came in through another program, potentially. And our business school as well, we are looking for specialite math at the premier level. So definitely those are some requirements that students should be aware of when they're choosing their courses. And I've had some students reach out to me pretty early on in their university process to make sure that they're meeting the right requirements. It's always better to check beforehand.
Yeah. So would you, as you said that you could consider the IBCP, would you consider the bac technologique in France, like the the STMG, for example, stream?
Yes, we would consider it for sure. Much more on a case-by-case basis. But it would be similar like requirements to that of the IBCP, given there's more of a career, more of a hands-on element to it. But yes.
Well, that's great to hear. And what about the English level? Because sometimes students are like, oh, it's in Quebec, we don't need. But if they haven't studied fully in English, let's say French back, they need an English language test. And so what kind of level are you looking for? What kind of test do you accept?
Yeah, so we offer a wide variety, or we accept a wide variety of English language proficiency. We offer or accept Duolingo, language cert, TOEFL, IELTS. So for TOEFL, we're looking for a minimum score of 90, internet-based with no component score below 20. For IELTS, minimum overall score of 6.5. For Duolingo, minimum score of 115. And so we have a variety of other tests on our English proficiency. One thing we've worked very hard at Bishops is to make sure that there is a wide variety of testing that students have access to. So that's not a barrier to them being able to study with us. I will say I have seen cases where students think that they require an English language proficiency. So just verifying that you do or do not need one is always important because sometimes, given the bilingual aspect of bishops, if they have a certain level of French or English proficiency, even though we're an English institution, if they've studied within a verified French or English institution for 3 years, at least 3 years, then it's not always required. So that's just something to be aware of.
Yeah. All right. If you have any questions in the audience, just feel free to add them now because we're getting close to the end. I have one more question on the timeline in terms of the application timeline. You said it's rolling admission, meaning no deadline. When would you advise students to apply? I know last year some students got a bit stressed to get their student visa. Do you expect kind of similar things this year where it would be better for them to receive an offer early? But receiving an offer early, does it mean committing early? Does it mean a deposit? And kind of what's the timeline students should be looking at?
Yes, great question. We were aware of some of those hurdles and those challenges that students faced last year. And so we definitely want to make sure that students get ahead of that as much as possible. Our final deadline for admission, as I mentioned, is March 1st. We purposefully set it like that to try and give students enough time. If they're meeting that deadline at the absolute latest, then they should still be in good shape to receive their documents. Where the issue or struggle sometimes comes in is we do allow students up until June 1st to decide to confirm their offer of admission with us. So I do encourage that even though we offer you that timeline, that extra step, the sooner that you confirm your place with us, the better, because it is stronger to start that process sooner. I will say last year, what was the hurdle is that, in Canada, we've been reformatting or redoing some of our processes as it comes to study permits. I think now that we are a few years in, I'm hoping that the process is going to be smoother and smoother. I will say we have a fantastic international office at Bishop's. We have 2 regulated RISIA immigration advisors who, I'm telling you, not enough people use their access, use their resources. They offer regular weekly drop-in sessions where you can just drop in with them and ask some of your study permit questions. The other thing that I recommend is taking advantage of on the Government of Canada website. There's an IRCC tracker where you can track how long for which countries study permits are taking to process. So it will give students a glimpse of like, okay, yes, I have until June 1st to confirm my offer, but oh my gosh, the study permits are taking this long to process. So I should probably confirm my spot a bit sooner than that if I want to make sure I'm able to come in September.
All right, great. We have one question in the chat here. Is the Cambridge Advanced Test accepted?
Yes, so we accept Cambridge English with a minimum score of 176. And there's a list of which of the following tests of the Cambridge English you have to take. So that's under our English proficiency website. But yes, Cambridge English is accepted.
All right. And then we have a question that maybe, we can talk about the recognition of a bachelor degree or specific titles, but are diplomas earned at Bishop recognized in France?
Yes, absolutely. Our degrees are world recognized. We have alumni working all over the world in many different countries. Definitely France. Another popular question I get about our diplomas and about our degrees is going on to further studies. I mentioned a lot of the examples I gave were in Quebec or in Canada or even the US, but we do have students who will go on to earn their master's or graduate studies in France. One of my good friends did hers in the Netherlands. We have a lot of students who will go abroad for their further studies, and those degrees are fully recognized.
Yeah, and I see that all the time. Start their undergraduate degree in Quebec, and then they go back to France or anywhere in Europe to earn their master's degree. And I think it's gives them a great resume, a great experience that companies are definitely going to look for afterwards.
Agreed. And one thing I can also plug is that although we're an English university, you can submit any of your work in French while you're studying with us. So that's another quick plug that I'm sure you've heard from other English universities in Quebec, but to ease any of those fears around language.
Yeah, no, definitely a nice place to, as a French speaker, and our community is French speaking, is definitely makes the transition smoother. All right, perfect. If there is final questions, now or never. Eric, anything else you want to share that you feel like we haven't covered, or any last advice you would want to share to conclude?
Yeah, while we're waiting and seeing if any final questions come in, the biggest thing I would leave listeners with and with prospective students or families is that Bishops is this incredible experience and so unique, as we've mentioned multiple times on this call. I think the beautiful part of us is that we offer students so much opportunity. Truly, we produce some pretty curious students. I think the common bond across what draws a student to Bishops is this curiosity of wanting to dabble in multiple subjects and really expand their horizons of what they might be interested in. But another common bond is that community piece. And I've said it a few different times on this call, and I'm kind of a broken record with it. But as an international student who came to Bishops, I was nervous. You know, I came from Boston. I didn't know I grew up within a 30-minute radius of 5 amazing institutions that I could have went to, that a lot of my family and my friends attended. And I chose to go to Bishops because I wanted something unique. I wanted something different and something meaningful. And between the professor relationships that I made, the global network and connections I built, and the hands-on opportunities between like I was a TA for 2 professors in my 4th year. I did a research assignment with one of my professors working on their research. These opportunities that I got at Bishops were so meaningful to me. So just, I guess if I were to end on anything, it's just Bishops is such a special place, and I encourage families and students to look into it, because I think once you start seeing some of the things that we have to offer, it will start checking a lot of the boxes that students are looking for.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Eric. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I think we've covered a lot of ground within this hour. So thank you so much for all these insights into Bishop. I think it was for anyone that went all the way to listen to our conversation. I think they have everything they need to decide whether if Bishops is for them, and to understand how to apply. And thank you to everyone that followed us today. And we'll see you very soon on another episode of the Anywhere Uni live podcast. Bye-bye.